Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Scout Selections here on Tuesday, February 4th. Before we get into today's play of the day, a quick recap of what happened yesterday. We ended up picking up a nice easy winner with the Miami Heat minus 2.5, which was available on FanDuel at minus 110. Game was a blowout. Heat ended up winning by 20 plus. They were up 30-something in the fourth quarter. I mentioned in yesterday's video how the 76ers are overrated and how, despite their talent on paper, I just think Brown is a terrible coach. And I think that Simmons and Embiid cannot coexist, and they got absolutely exposed. I expect them to try to blow something up at the deadline, potentially get another shooter. The Al Horford edition hasn't really done much. Either or, easy winner. I mean, anytime you see a team that's 21-3 or 22-3 against a team with a losing record and they're only laying 2.5, that's pretty much a must bet every time. And we ended up getting a nice play of the day winner. But for today's card, pretty limited in the NBA, as you've only had, after a decent amount of games the last couple of days, you only have 4 games, and I'm not really interested in any of those. In terms of the Lillard player prop, which I've given out in the past, I know Lillard's player prop is currently at 33.5 points, and that's, don't get me wrong, do I think he's going to hit it? I think he's got a good shot, but Denver's pretty good defensively, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him potentially get double-teamed almost every time he crosses half court, which they'll force the ball to his hands a bit more, so I'm not going to be touching that. But there's one play in college basketball that I actually do like based on the line, and I'll be giving that out as play today, and that will be in a matchup between Ohio State and Michigan, and we like the Wolverines here, minus 2.5, which is available on DraftKings at minus 112, and that will be the play of the day. Now, in terms of both these teams, pretty underwhelming so far, almost identical records. Ohio State, after being in the top 3 earlier this season, is currently unranked, and they are 14-7 with a 4-6 record in conference play. Whereas Michigan, who was also once ranked in the top 3, is 13-8 with a 4-6 record in conference play. Both teams are on 2-game winning streaks. Both teams have been very underwhelming in conference play. And overall, I just think that Michigan should be able to get the job done. I'm more impressed with their recent wins over Ohio State's. So play of the day will be on Michigan minus 2.5, which is available on DraftKings at minus 112. Now, the first couple of reasons why I like Michigan, first of all, I just think they're the more talented team. I mean, if you've compared the strength of schedule of both teams, Michigan still has some impressive wins. Beat Gonzaga. They, if you look through the actual records of the teams, they beat Rutgers over the weekend, who was ranked. They beat Creighton by 10. They ended up beating Iowa earlier this season. They lost to Oregon by 1. They've been very close. They've been very competitive against top-tier talent, whereas Ohio State so far this season has been pretty underwhelming. Their biggest win so far this season is against North Carolina, and North Carolina turned out to be terrible. They beat Villanova earlier in the year, which was impressive. But then they have a lot of questionable performances in conference play, especially on the road. They lost to Minnesota by 13. Minnesota's terrible. They ended up losing to Wisconsin at home by 4. Wisconsin's not great. They got blown out by Maryland by double digits. They lost to Indiana by 12, lost to Penn State by 14, lost to Minnesota twice so far this season. Really not great. They've won each of their last 2, but they played at Northwestern, who's the worst team in the entire conference, and they ended up beating Indiana at home by 9, and Indiana is pretty awful on the road. Meanwhile, Michigan was able to beat Nebraska on the road. Nebraska's not great, but they were able to beat Rutgers on a neutral by 6 points, and Rutgers has been a very pleasant surprise in the Big Ten so far this season. But as a whole, Michigan has the better offense. They're averaging roughly 4 more points per game. They're averaging more blocks, more steals, more assists. Ohio State's a little bit better in the rebounding department, but at the end of the day, I just think Michigan at home should be able to take care of business in front of a sold-out and packed crowd at the Chrysler Center. Even though Ohio State-Michigan is a bigger rivalry in football, they still have a huge rivalry in basketball. And if you've looked at the recent trends in this matchup, the home team has dominated in recent years. According to some trends, the home team is 7-1 against the spread in the last 8 meetings, and the favorite is 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 meetings. Michigan satisfies both of those criteria, and I think even though this game should be close, I don't expect this game to be blowout by any means throughout any of the 40 minutes. I do think Michigan should win this game by at least 3 points, and I think Michigan just has more offensive firepower. I think Teskey's a very solid center. I think Simpson is a very solid point guard. I know Livers still being out definitely hurts, but Michigan has started to look a lot better over the last week, and I think they should be able to continue that at home. So the play of the day, once again, will be on Michigan minus 2.5, which is available on DraftKings at minus 112, and that will be the play of the day. Now, talking about some leans on the college card, one play that I actually thought about giving out as play that I like Northern Illinois plus 6.5 against Toledo. Toledo's lost 3 straight. Northern Illinois won 4 straight. Northern Illinois is the better record in conference play. Toledo has dominated this conference, or they've done really well in this conference, I should say, in recent years. This year they're just 11-11 overall, and they are 3-6 in conference play. Very underwhelming. And Northern Illinois enters this game in solid form. I think 6.5 is too high for Toledo. I think Northern Illinois has a serious shot of actually winning the game. So for me, lean to Northern Illinois plus the points on that one. I thought about giving that out as play today, but the line is so questionable that I feel like that could potentially be a trap. So for that reason, I'll just give that out as a lean instead. Other than that, I'm going to lean to Arkansas -1 against Auburn. I mean, anytime you have an unranked team favored over a ranked team, I have to lean to the unranked team. Auburn coming in off a nice win against Kentucky at home. Arkansas has been very solid at home so far this season. This line looks a little bit questionable. I think this game should be very close. But Auburn got really lucky to beat Ole Miss in double overtime a couple of games ago on the road, and I think Arkansas should be able to put the pedal to the metal and finish the game off. So leaning to Arkansas, the game should be close. I think the Razorbacks will get the victory. Other than that, I have to lean to the over 146.5 between Alabama and Tennessee. Even though Tennessee's offense has struggled so far this season, Alabama plays at the 3rd fastest pace in the country according to KenPom rankings. So I think that they should just cause this game to turn into a track meet. Alabama should get into potentially the 80s. I think Tennessee should get into the 70s, lean to the over in that one. Other than that, though, pretty much all my thoughts on the college basketball card. Now, for the NBA, there's only 4 games to cover. I'm going to lean to the over 225.5 between Portland and Denver because that line has jumped to roughly 5.5 points. I went from 220.5 to roughly 225.5. I think that game should feature a lot of points. Other than that, I'll lean to the Lakers -11.5 against San Antonio. Don't take it yet, though. It depends on if Anthony Davis is going to play. San Antonio's playing the second night of a back-to-back after pretty much choking a game away to the Clippers yesterday. Anthony Davis is probable, but I think that the Lakers should be able to take advantage of a tired San Antonio team at home. So lean to the Lakers -11.5 on that one. And other than that, don't really have any other thoughts. Houston's interesting, but Westbrook's doubtful, so Harden's probably going to take another 35 shots. And although he played well in his last game, I expect he's been pretty inefficient, and I don't fully trust him right now based on the form he's been in. 13.5 just seems a bit too high, but Charlotte's terrible, and they've been an absolute disaster over the last couple of weeks, so personally I'll pass on that one. And you have Milwaukee and New Orleans, which has a very fun total of 245. I got to lean to Milwaukee -6.5 because New Orleans plays no defense, but that game I expect to see Milwaukee get into the 130s, lean to the Bucks on that one, and potentially the Bucks team total over, as that game should be high scoring. But the play today, once again, will be on the Michigan Wolverines -2.5, which is available on DraftKings at -112. That's good for the installment of Scott Selections here for Tuesday, February 4th. A good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.